Yakri here with another Warframe video. Today I wanted to talk about Harrow? I almost called him Harrow. Harrow, who was just released recently. I decided I wanted to make a video about him because he's a lot of fun and I was really anticipating this frame coming out. So let's just jump right into it. This is the build I am using on him. I don't know if it's what I'm going to stick with in the long run, but having vigor and redirection is nice for one of his abilities that uses up shields. We'll talk about that in a bit. And in general, you just want duration and power strength on Harrow without having negative range. You don't need a ton of range, but more is better. In particular, his abilities that help allies are more convenient, obviously, if there's a wider range, so you don't have to be right next to each other. But especially if you're playing solo, your range doesn't really matter at all, except for your one. And yeah, duration and strength are what really matter. They affect all of his abilities, except his ult isn't really affected by power strength. It is, but it doesn't matter very much. So here are his abilities. We've got Condemn, his number one. It's a fairly, let's look at this without stats first. It's a fairly long range ability. Its duration isn't that long, but it does completely immobilize enemies, which in this case means they're essentially stunned, right? They can't do anything, they can't wander around aimlessly, they can't attack you. They are out of the fight. And you get shields, which turn into over shields, right, if you have max shields already, for each enemy hit, which goes well with his passive, which is that his over shields capacity is doubled. Now, shields aren't very useful in Warframe right now. It means that in high-level missions, Harrow is extremely fragile, like Nova, but his Condemn is still going to be important for him because of his second ability, Penance. Penance sacrifices shields in order to boost your reload speed and fire rate, and to allow you to heal yourself and allies. Now, the power of the ability is not affected by the amount of shields stolen, only the duration is, and unfortunately, he was recently changed after he was released, so that there's a 60-second cap on Penance. You used to be able to stack it fairly indefinitely, so if you could really just farm up a ton of shields, you could get really, really long durations, up to a couple of minutes long, without too much trouble. Now it's capped at 60 seconds, which is still a fairly long duration ability, but I'm a little annoyed by that. I don't think there was really anything wrong with letting it stack very high before. So, as you can see, the fire rate and reload speed are not too high. Reload speed's actually pretty good. Honestly, I actually expected it to be a little bit of a stronger buff. You know, because of how reload speed scales, it doesn't really, what's what I'm looking for? I was expecting, like, blindingly fast reloads and a significant fire rate buff. Instead, it's a respectable increase to damage. It makes some weapons a little more convenient. It makes some weapon builds a little more convenient if you don't want to include so much fire rate for weapons that have charge, especially, like, I've been using the new Opticore a lot with this, and the Opticore feel is you could always use more attack speed on that thing, so it feels really nice. The reload speed, you know, it's there, it's noticeable, but it could be higher. I kind of wish you could get some crazy amount on it, so you just reload it instantly, or almost. You know, I want to see 1 second reloads go down to 0.2 seconds or less. But that doesn't really quite happen. It's still good, and the heal, of course, like most heals in Warframe, is over the top. If you just blast a couple enemies with a single shot, everyone's healed to full HP instantly. And the thing that I hesitate to say this, I think status procs that deal damage over time will heal people if you do it with a gun or a weapon, melee weapon, right? I think I saw that happening. I still need to test it with friends, so don't quote me on that, but I believe that's the case. I could be wrong. Now let's move on to Thurble. This is his channeled ability that lets him restore energy. This is one that a lot of people are not a fan of. I don't think it's too bad, because the channeling duration, the duration you need to channel for before it becomes useful, is pretty long. I think it could be faster. If it was like 30% faster, I wouldn't really complain. However, I don't think it's a significant problem right now. I'll show it later in the video. You don't actually have to channel it all the way for it to be extremely powerful, so that helps a lot with that. Especially if you have a decent amount of power strength, or if you can headshot enemies, which is, you can't always, like, infested, it's a really big problem versus infested. Well, we'll see that later. So that one, however, lets you get energy back. You can get a ton of energy back. You can really easily get like 40 to 80 energy in a single kill. And you can just, massacre a large number of enemies and get all your energy back very quickly. This means for solo play, energy efficiency isn't really crucial on Harrow. And for group play, of course, you can play the role of a support and give people back energy. It's not quite as convenient as Trinity, but you can still replenish someone's entire energy bar relatively quickly. Now, for his ultimate. His ultimate has a really long casting animation, and it makes you invulnerable during and, depending on your duration, after the casting animation. It also makes all of your allies invulnerable. I believe it doesn't have a range. It doesn't have one listed, and I haven't seen anyone ever manage to be out of range of it, so I think it's global. Or at the very least, it is as large as Affinity range, but I think it's actually larger. I think it's global. It makes everyone invulnerable for the duration, then you get crit bonus afterwards. Now, the reason I mentioned power strength not really affecting this, it's because power strength only means that you need to take less damage to hit the cap, which is 50% crit chance and 200% headshot crit chance. Something to note about this, I guess I'll retest it during the video, but I think I just tested it earlier. It's additive crit chance, not multiplicative. This is really important because it means that if you have a weapon with a 5% crit chance and you use this ability, it has a 55% crit chance now, not a 7.5% crit chance. Now, there are a lot of people on the forums and Reddit who are thinking it worked the other way, right, where it would be useless on low crit chance weapons. It's really the opposite. It's very valuable on all weapons, and it's particularly valuable on any weapon with a high crit multiplier, right? That's the key thing. High crit multiplier makes it extremely good. But the crit chance itself actually doesn't matter very much. Now let's look at the stats with mods, so you can see a bit of how my mod setup affects this. But there's not too much more to discuss. Alright, so let's actually show this off a little bit. I'll show it with a couple different weapons. Mostly going to be just cheesing medium level enemies. Alright, so it can actually, in practice, be a little bit difficult to get enough damage dealt to you in your ultimate when just playing normally. If you can find a group of enemies, however, to just beat up on you, it's pretty easy to get the amount of damage you need. You need about 4,000, as you can see. I got 6,000. They're getting beat up by these butchers, and now I have the bonus crit chance, right? And it's absolutely brutal. I forgot to show my Sybaris build. I'll do that when I go back after killing these guys. But it's not too optimized, really. Although I've formatted it enough to have a full set of mods on it. But it absolutely destroys these. Alright, so let's take a look at some of his other capabilities. So why don't we get a little bit of... Yeah. So that's his one. It locks enemies in place, just completely freezes them. They can't do jack shit. It's actually pretty nice, although it has a really narrow range. It's a line attack, not a cone, which I'm not a huge fan of. I expected it to be a cone. I wish it was a cone, but it's still good anyway. Wait, am I wrong? Is it just a really narrow cone? It's hard to tell. I thought it was a line attack, and it's still narrow either way. Alright, so now if you use your 2, you blow off all your shields. I've got... It's not capped at 7. Look at that. If you look on the bottom right, there's a patch that said it was capped to 60 seconds, but as you can see there, it's not. So I don't know what's up with that. Maybe they either reverted the change while I wasn't looking, or didn't actually implement it when they put it in the patch notes. So anyway, this increases your reload speed and your fire rate. It's not going to be very noticeable, as I mentioned before, unless I swapped out to a extremely high power strength build, but it's pretty nice nonetheless. It's especially nice on charge weapons where it's a little more noticeable. You might not be able to tell in the video, but if you play him yourself and you use any charge weapon you're used to, it's going to feel a lot better. Let's take a look at his energy gain ability with some more fairly weak enemies. So, as you can see, it charges up energy per kill, kind of slowly. You can move around while using it, which is nice. So if you're strategic with how you use it, you're not going to have to just sit around waiting for it to charge up too much. And about 13 energy is pretty good, actually. So you can see there you get 4 times the energy on a headshot, which is really just a huge amount of energy if you can land headshots. If you can't, though, it's important to remember that although Harrow is really themed as being a gun priest, you don't have to use a gun with him. Actually, I've found just going in with melee and attacking things to be very effective, especially since, as you see on the right there, you can get headshots with your melee weapons. So that's probably the best strategy versus Infested. If you are fighting Corpus or Grineer, you can land headshots, and I'd recommend you do so. However, versus Infested, just going in ham with a melee weapon is pretty nice. And you'll get your energy back in no time. The other thing I'm trying to make a point of here is you really don't need to channel the full duration. If you watch it channeling again here, channeling for maybe like a third of your energy bar is pretty effective. If you're low on energy, even channeling until you get to like 2 energy per kill works pretty well. You know, in Warframe you kill such a huge amount of enemies that getting it up to like 3 or 4 energy per kill and then slaughtering a bunch of enemies can get you to like 200 or 300 energy, you know, about your max almost, and you can activate it again and then charge it to a higher amount and go after enemies again. Certainly while soloing, it makes it fairly easy to keep your energy up unless you have a large amount of negative efficiency, and even then, if you play carefully and have really high duration, mine's at 54 seconds right now, it works quite well. Oh yeah, this is the other thing I wanted to show. So this is the... Let's look at my mods on my weapons really quick here. So this is my Dexiberus build. It's got, you know, 87% crit chance right now. I think I used Argon Scope, so it can orange crit now, but it can't red crit. And you noticed red crits earlier. That's because of the ultimate. It does, let's see, let's look at the damage it does per shot on these enemies without the ultimate really quick. So 1500, right? On a body shot, let's get a headshot in here. Come on. 6,000 versus, you know, 22,000 or 28,000, whatever I was hitting earlier. So, alright, let's go back and look at the acrid, right? So this is about the additive crit chance thing. The acrid, it's got 5% crit chance. I have a Riven for it, but I took it off for this purposes, since I assume most people don't want to just get a Riven for some random weapon. Or a lot of people don't like them at all, so let's take a look at the acrid with its 5% crit chance and Harrow's ultimate ability. Alright, come on, come get me. Alright, as you can see, it just crit both shots there. Fuck. And orange crits. That's because it has... Actually, you know, it's a little weird that it only orange crits. It should be, no, I didn't take enough damage. It should be hitting for 205%. Oh, right. It has only a 5% chance to red crit. That's why. Silly me. It has a 100% chance to orange crit, 5% chance to red crit. That's how that works. So yeah, it's really actually kind of brilliant on weapons like this. I mean, it works for melee too. It's just good for everything. So you don't have to worry about your low crit chance weapons not being affected. I think it's actually where it's like with a lot of the damage boosts in Warframe, where it's really effective is on weapons like the Ignis, right? Not sure what my build is on this right now. But, you know, the Ignis has its 5% crit chance, right? I've got this modded reasonably well. Let's take a look at this here really quick. So, the point I'm trying to make, though, is that utility weapons that can hit a large number of enemies or have some special effect, like the Atmos that chains between enemies, right? Those are the weapons that are really benefit from damage boosts in Warframe, especially these huge multiplicative bonuses like this. So as you can see, it kills them pretty fast, but not quite instantly. Alright. There we go. Are they just killing oh, right, they are killing each other. Oh, look at that. It's beautiful damage. I probably need to go to higher level enemies to really show this off. But as you can see, you know, it's critting half the time. It's nice. It's very nice. I think with most weapons, the 50% crit chance equates to about 50% bonus damage. So it's kind of about as good as Rhino Shout, which doesn't seem that impressive, but of course on weapons that can headshot, it's much nicer. And let's finish off the video. This is pretty much the end of the line. There isn't much else to show about Harrow. I think he's a very good Warframe. I think he can replace Trinity in squads. He's not quite as efficient as her, but he's a lot more fun to play. He's certainly not like weak in any particular way. If he has a weakness, it's that he is squishy and he's going to die very easily in high level missions without protection. Because they haven't implemented shield gating yet, and even that, unless they implement multiple shield breaks, he's not going to be too great in high-level missions. You know, if they... that's a different topic, so I won't talk about that. Point is, I think he's a lot of fun. I think you can use him effectively up into sortie level missions, and all of his stuff works fine camping under a frost bubble, so after that point you can continue using him. He's only not particularly good in really, really efficient farm strategies, like if you're having resonating sonar, whatever, Soundquake Banshee. If you're having Soundquake Banshee kill everything herself, there's no real reason to have him. He doesn't provide any benefit. You could maybe have him recharge her energy between waves sometimes, or every couple of waves. But there's no reason for him to exist. If you're totally locking down every enemy on the map so they can't do anything and just waiting around an interception, sure, you don't need him. But for all normal gameplay, he's very effective, really nice person to have on your squad because he provides energy, he provides healing, and he is a fairly effective, like, self-damage boosting Warframe. So let's take a look at these guys. If you're wondering, my Lanka build is actually, I'll show it after this, really excessive. I have a nice ribbon for it. It's actually one that a friend gave me because I like the weapon a lot, and I got a lucky roll on it. It's very nice. But this is just absolutely ridiculously excessive. Oh, hold on a second. I'm not sure I'm a good enough shot to really show this off without a little bit of abuse, huh? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I just love seeing the really just the ridiculous numbers. But you know, it's I kind of want to make a different video about overkill because it's cool, but there's also like there's no purpose to that at all, really. Yeah, I think that's all. He's very fun if you like to see big numbers. I think the way that I have enjoyed using him most is actually... Oh, wait. There's one other thing I can show, right? So let's just spawn these guys again and slap myself a bit. All right. I don't know if you noticed, but I have a fairly long charge time on this weapon because I like seeing the big fat numbers, and that means less fire rate mods. And just the little like 33% extra fire rate really makes it a more comfortable weapon to fire. If you'd like to see the build, it's right here. With or without a sweet ribbon mod, the Lanka is actually a great gun. It's my favorite sniper by far, although I know most people don't like snipers in general. All right, I think that pretty much concludes the video. Is there anything else I wanted to mention? Alright, utility weapons. He's great for charge weapons. He's great for utility weapons if you've got a weapon like the Ignis. Anything that benefits a lot from a damage boost because it's kind of a weak damage weapon that hits a lot of enemies. It's probably very abusive with weapons that have a large crit multiplier because if your weapon has a large crit multiplier, his ultimate is better than 50% bonus damage. So, for example, on the... Amperex, right? Or on the new Opticore. It is an amazing ability. Absolutely amazing on those weapons. So keep that in mind. It's also ridiculously overpowered with melee weapons, I would say. Pretty much all melee weapons. Absolutely absurd. Yeah. I'm actually almost a little disappointed that he is as effective in melee as he is, because he's almost better in melee than he is with a gun, and he's a gun priest. Hate this stupid Sentinel. DEY. Alright, have a nice day, guys. Hope you enjoyed. Yakri out.